it's all coming together, and it's actually incredible. It's so mind-blowingly fantastic, right? To be here today, to be part of this network, and that stretches from the Burren, but also all through the whole of Ireland.
Just to let you know, of course, you're all in the Burren. You're also all in a Geo Park. You're also all part of the Burren Food Trail. And what we're going to talk about here is the potential to kind of build our coastal communities and our tourism communities for the benefit of everybody who is in them.
And the idea of Geo Park is that it really celebrates the terroir.
We'll say, as anybody drives through the Burren, the first thing you will notice is the limestone karst landscape, or we just call them the crags. And you'll see cattle on those limestone karst. The unique way of overwintering the cattle, that is, we'll say the scientists call it reverse transhumance. We call it just putting the cattle to the winterage. This is what actually preserves the fauna of the limestone karst. So it's one of the few places where the environment is totally dependent on the way that farmers manage and graze the area. Most people will actually look and say, my God, it must be fantastic to taste that beef. The beef that's produced on that limestone karst in such a kind of the opposite to an intensive, such an extensive way, must be fantastic. But the curious thing about the kind of tradition of farming in the Burren is that we actually haven't a tradition of beef producing. Our tradition has always been cattle producing. We produce, the heifer that becomes the Mullingar heifer that's beef to the heels.
That the Geo Park concept is being recognised by UNESCO, and very soon, by the end of this year, we will be able to use the UNESCO brand in association with Geo Parks as well. And that's huge. That has enormous potential. And if that UNESCO brand can be then associated directly with the food that's being produced from these regions, I think we're really going to have something very, very powerful to utilise and to play with.
When Ireland is promoted abroad, it's primarily promoted on greenness, environmental qualities and heritage. And when customers from America particularly, or Germany, Britain is our top tourist destination, when they return home and when they are asked to score or rate their experience of Ireland, they will all rate those three qualities very highly: people, environment and heritage. And they continue to rate food really, really low down the scale. So then Tourism Ireland responded to this by not selling Ireland as a food destination. Because almost if you sell it as a food destination and people come here and have bad experiences, you're worse off as a body than if you just publicise and sell the things that can be definite, relied upon winners.
On Wednesday we're actually going to open up a farm shop on the farm. We have noticed, the last number of years, people just don't want to come and buy, they actually want to see and get a sense of what we're about. So they actually want to see the goats. In most cases actually they're more taken up with the goats than they are with the cheese making, because once they go and see the animals, especially the kids, they get very, they like getting their hands down and dirty, and we get them to feed them.
There we changed the name from Spanish pint, I suppose, to wild Irish sea veg, because a lot of the seaweeds around the world are grown in farms and things like that, and a lot of the seaweed was produced for Europe was produced in Japan. And with the nuclear disaster in Japan, lots of customers in Spain, Portugal, Germany, Italy are now, we're exported to all these different places with the market.
Okay, so the Burren Smokehouse started 1989. Myself and Peter actually started out of just wanting to make a living. So at this stage we have about 30,000 visitors each year coming to see us. We want to not only produce something for the sake of producing, but we also want to communicate about how we produce it and what raw materials we use.
You're going to say, no, he's a regular farmer, now he's going to start giving out about money. And I kind of am. Because the curiosity about livestock farming in the Burren and elsewhere in Ireland is that the majority of livestock farmers actually generate a trading loss. That is, that the cost of producing the animals that they produce on their farms actually costs more than the yield from them. the financial yield from them. Most farmers, most livestock farmers, that's dry livestock, not dairy farmers. I'm actually a dairy farmer, and that's how I can afford to come here. Most dry stock farmers actually don't make any profit. Their income is derived almost solely from the single farm payment. Myself, I have a dairy farm, and like this year I'm using more Aberdeen Angus straws. That's the way we breed cattle now. We don't use bulls, we use straws. So I'm actually using more Aberdeen Angus straws now than I have ever done before. And 10 years ago that would have been considered a retrograde step and a step backwards. It is maybe a step backwards, but it's kind of a step backwards in order to move forward in kind of more difficult and more challenging times. There was an attempt at a Burren brand in the kind of 07. It probably was. It's entirely possible that it was a little bit over-ambitious, and it kind of overextended, and it arrived at a kind of around the time of the funeral for the Celtic Tiger, and maybe that wasn't a good time to kind of launch something that was. It was a little bit over-ambitious and maybe not terribly well thought out, and I think we could kind of learn from that and maybe start off a little bit slower and a little bit kind of gentler and produce something that I really believe, based on the farm tours, it's one of the first things that people will ask when they see the calves and the cows, you know, wandering around the limestone. They'll say, where can you get that beef?
I was so sad that the Burren, the brand of the Burren beef and lamb didn't come into fruition, but it will. I'm sure it will, because it had a lot of followers at the time.
It's just, I mean, for a lot of people we find out more and more, they want to know the story.
You know, we're here in Listonvana, in the Burren, in the wider scope of Europe and the world.